have to do is allow total vulnerability, total availability to these vibrant frequencies. So, and then humankind begins to realize the vast wealth of resources available in the planet indeed. And that is just the beginning. From the spirit plane, from all of the dimensions at once. So it is most important, is it not, to allow self to wake up every day and to say, oh, what a glorious day. Self has no control over anything. Oh, what a glorious day. Self is fully vulnerable to all that is. Hallelujah. And then self gets out of bed and has a very interesting day. The reason it is interesting is because the day is filled with surprises. The mystery is a surprise package, is it not? And there's endless gifts in the mystery. And yet self is afraid to even notice that the packages are in there, much less open up the packaging and look inside. Because self is afraid of finding something out about self that won't fit into the box. Is that part clear? Yes. The controlled box of self-perception. And so self says, well, wait a minute, this box, this has been the way it has been for many, many lifetimes, including all of my childhood and most of my adulthood, etc. Why should I get out of the box? And yet self doesn't understand why self feels so cramped and so angry and so despairing and so depressed. And that is because self is trying to stay content in a container that self outgrew hundreds of lifetimes ago. Is that part clear? Everyone knows that perhaps after 10, 20 years it might be nice to buy a new shirt and get rid of the other one. That was a joke, don't take it too seriously. So, in other words, it's time to take on a new perception of self. Is that part clear? That allows, where the circuitry is not yet ironclad, compressed into predictability. And then self can look at the areas of greatest resistance to vulnerability within. And then when self looks at those areas of vulnerability and the resistance to it, self is able to see all the distortions in the soul body. Is that part clear? Self says, well, all right, I don't dare be vulnerable with the people that I work with. Then self says, all right, that what is self holding in that area that makes it so frightening? And perhaps there's a distortion in the causal body, in the historic body of the soul that says, if self is vulnerable, if self truly shows self's authenticity and self's vulnerable aspect of the authentic self, meaning the soft self, the precious self, the uncertain self, the self that gets completely affected by others, that is not immune to others. If self were to show that, the false belief says, oh goodness, if self shows that in any environment that does not reflect naturally who self is, but rather reflects the monstrous human beings, that self will be shredded, eviscerated, self will be annihilated. Is that part clear? And so then self, so the soul is thereby carrying aspects of itself that it has decided is that these aspects are unloved by Source. These aspects are disallowed by Source. And so therefore, the extent to which self holds that distortion is the extent to which self then protects that area from exposure, that area of vulnerability and full impact. because then self is adhering to a false belief that says it is not safe to be completely open in this universe or in any other universe as well. And so, of course, from where the masters sit, the only safe place is to be completely open. Because that is the area of greatest infusion. That is why not avail self of the mighty force fields available that carry the soul through its incarnations with such potency. The potency that is not a compensation for vulnerability. Rather, the potency of vulnerability coming forth within the context of a force field of love so profound that it has the ability to transmute everything around it. Is that part clear? So therefore, it is most important for self to to allow self to take in the, shall we say, the fundamental belief, or shall we say the metaphysical truth. That fundamental truth is humankind needs everything. Humankind needs each other. Humankind needs the angelic force. Humankind needs the masters. Humankind needs the extraterrestrial family. Humankind needs all the beloveds on the spirit plane. Humankind needs all the great light workers in the heart of the earth. Humankind needs all the great creatures upon the planet, etc., etc. Humankind needs this. Needs this. Shall we say it again? Needs it. So that it is not a choice. It is non-negotiable. There are many students that say, I'm doing fine on my own, thank you. And meanwhile, that being, that student is surrounded by help. An unperceived connection. And so, why not allow self simply to embrace the need and to realize this is true for all of humankind? And then allow self to rejoice in the need so that then self can reach out with this precious vulnerability, all chakras opened, in the front, in the back, and all around the auric field. All chakras open so that this energy, this force field of aliveness, the gift of life that is in the force field, is flooding, so to speak, joyfully flooding all the chakras. All because self accepted and rejoiced in the need to be in full contact with everyone and everything. Is that part clear?
Yes.
And then in doing that, then self sees that the vulnerability is the access point to the nourishment that comes from full contact with all of creation. Is that part clear?
Yes.
And then self eats, takes it in, feeds, hooray, yes? Self is finally feeling satisfied. A self is no longer angry at a God who would starve its children. And therefore self can appreciate this wondrous universe where it is through this contact that there is a tremendous exchange. It is always exchange, by the way. Humankind is not simply flailing around, simply needing to get something and not giving anything back. Oh goodness. It is an exchange of cosmic fire. It is an exchange of energy. So the more that, so there are many students that say, we want to make an impact, we want to have a purpose, we want to change the planet, we want to change humankind. How can we do that? The masters say, be vulnerable. Oh no, not that. We'll do anything but. And so it is most important to recognize that self's willingness to simply recognize the rich vulnerability allows self to have that access to full contact with all that is, And in the access with it, self, it automatically regenerates the energy and puts it back out. Cyclical, spiraling, universal energy. The arc, the trajectory of the ebb and flow, the return, the going out into incarnation, returning into merging and going out and returning, and all of it. It is all exchanging energy at all times, just as the masters sitting here, not only the Tibetan, are exchanging energy right now with the students. Does everyone feel the energy? Oh goodness.
Yes.
And therefore it is moving, the extent to which self allows it in is the extent to which self offers it forth. There are many students that say, we want to serve, we want to help. And it is honorable and noble indeed for the students to serve and help. And yet if the student cannot allow vulnerability and has to control that part of self, then the student cannot receive. If the student cannot receive the energy, then of course it is what energy is self using to serve and help? With what are the forces? They are somewhat, shall we say, watered down. So to allow self to have the greatest connection, shall we say, or shall we say the connection with the most potent of forces, that it requires self's most vulnerable area to be exposed to that place. Is that quite clear? Because it is the height of the greatest awareness of vulnerability. That area of vulnerability is precisely the area that the soul has protected, because there is a tremendous template of false beliefs that have congealed around that area. The false beliefs that have said that it is not a safe universe, it is not trustworthy, self must go it alone, self must have it under control. So that is the area that is most acutely, feels most acutely vulnerable. So as self allows access with the frequencies to that particular area, there is a tremendous magnetism in it. The magnetics are very, very strong. And so therefore it draws the cosmic energy in right into that area. And even though it feels like a crisis, even though it may feel terrifying, this is the most potent base for transformation, this place. And so therefore the soul in its genius, along with the karmic board, meets and describes and creates, co-creates repeating patterns, places during the life, during each incarnation, where there can be a breaking down, so to speak, a falling apart, a dismembering, a dismantling, all with the divine purpose to gain access to this very, very vulnerable place. And once that connection is made, and the great forces hook, so to speak, in the best sense of the word, shall we say, interface, join in to that most vulnerable place, there is a transmission of tremendous electricity. There's the illusion of victimhood resolves very, very quickly, and self is able to experience the meaning of breakthrough at a phenomenal level, and to tell the student that this is what will happen. Before it happens, yes, we do that. However, the student cannot fathom the enormity of change that this would bring to self, to allow that access point.